All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to the WTCF podcast. It's me, Charlie, here with Michelle Hopper to go ahead and kind of walk through some of her experience of working with We the Collective and kind of share some of her viewpoints on health. So, Michelle, what's good this morning? And tell some people about yourself.
My name is Michelle Hopper. I have been coming to We the Collective since around February. Um, my life includes 3 children, 3, 7, and 10 years old. And then I'm also a principal at an alternative school within the West 40 network. So we service students from all over the West 40 network, which is pretty cool. And then I get to come here in open times to build my health.
Yeah. So, again, been working with us since like February. What do you think is the biggest thing that's changed for you since that time frame? Because again, we've worked together at another studio before this, before transitioning everything over here. What would you think has kind of changed in yourself since like that February time frame?
I think I'm way more attentive to my own needs. I've learned a lot about mobility. I've learned a lot about just weight training and lifting weights and using barbells. And I feel more comfortable going to grab another weight if it's an exercise and I know I can push myself further. Um, I've also learned to ask questions and try new things. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, all of those are really good things because again, like progressive overload, getting tougher over time, and understanding our own limits can kind of help us push closer and closer to failure, so we can progress a little bit further. So, in your opinion, what makes a healthy lifestyle,
Um,
or what does healthy mean to you? We'll start with that
yeah,
one. What does healthy mean?
healthy. I think it looks different for everybody. It feels different for everybody. I think it's constantly evolving and changing and growing. For me, I think it's feeling good in my body, having energy, feeling strong. Um, as I've gotten older, my eating habits, I can tell when I've had like not a great week or weekend as compared to when I've made healthier eating choices. Um, as far as just physically healthy, I think just moving every day, even if it is just a walk, if it's coming here, if it's a bike ride, if it's light yoga, whatever my body might need for the day.
Yeah, something to keep it active and using it a whole
Mm-hmm.
lot, so you can go ahead and continue to make those little minor changes.
Mm-hmm.
Are there specific like habits or behaviors that you associate with being healthy? So,
Um,
because you said like developing. So we've already cut once, and we tried to do this over again because the overhead was going so loud. So some of this might sound like we're talking about something different. So welcome to the party. So when you were saying beforehand about like developing and building habits,
yeah.
what are some of the other ones that you have found out to be healthier for you that kind of help you?
I think the habits are huge. I think something I have also learned, I forget where I heard it, but just thinking of the future self. So, like, make choices to benefit your future self, even if it's just getting up 15 minutes earlier and reading, or having a cup of coffee by yourself, or listening to a meditation. Um, yeah, I think habits is key because you're not always going to feel motivated every morning or night or during the day. So if you build in healthy habits, you're more likely to just sustain the things you want to go towards your goals.
Yeah, I think it's an Aristotle quote is excellence isn't an action, it's a habit. Because again, we continue to kind of find that consistency. That's the word I was
Mm-hmm.
looking for before.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we consistently kind of work on those things, we're going to become more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I spent all of my time sitting around in my basement really depressed and drinking, I'm going to get really, really good at being depressed and drinking.
Right.
So, and again, if that for me was considered healthy, I don't think anybody's going to say like sitting in your basement by yourself drinking alone all day is a healthy way to go through life. But again, some of these moments that consistently come back, that's what's going to go ahead and make us change and kind of recognize that, I wake up every day at 4 a.m. Now I just do it even on days I don't have to wake up that early because it's just so ingrained into my head.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats, your day gets to start now.
Right.
So, and again, you've been showing up to super, super early stuff, even coming into the personal trainings at 5:15. So you already know what it's like to be up super, super early. Do you? So we talked a little bit about it in the last cut, but let's go ahead and do this in a really good way. Do you believe that there's a healthy lifestyle that includes both physical and mental aspects?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So go into some detail of your understanding of that, or what helps you through that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not feeling mentally great, it's really hard to push yourself to do physical movement. Um, Even though it's like a circle, like we kind of need physical movement to help our mental health also. Um, something that I've been trying to learn and grow and work more on is just taking time for meditations, which is really hard for me to sit still and listen. But even if it's again small chunks of time, um, the positive mantras and visualizations and kind of anything to just help you feel better about yourself, have goals to better set in mind. I think mental health can look like a lot of things. It can be other creative outlets,
Mm-hmm.
music, art, whatever feeds your soul, makes you happy. Try to add more of that in your life.
Yeah, because again, if you consistently do those things, you're going to get good at it, and it just kind of becomes an ingrained part of who you are, especially if
Yeah.
it's the things that you really like. And since we're kind of talking about like setting goals, well, how do you kind of measure your own health? And I'll put with this caveat is one of the big things that people will push for is a weight goal, and that's the one thing that I don't want anything to do with. And at We the Collective, I don't give a shit what people weigh. I don't care what they want to go weigh at the end of it. I rather focus in on performance because if you're doing all the other stuff, that does become one of the things. And an interesting question that I've asked to people, and I'll kind of come back to it, is if you had to be 10 pounds heavier, but you achieved 90% of your goals, would you take it? And a lot of people still would say, no, I'd rather weigh less. It's like, so you'd rather sacrifice all of these things that are really important for an arbitrary number of how much gravitation this earth has on you. Are you sure about that? And I find that really, really kind of like interesting. It's like weight is not going to, it's like one of the factors of health, but there's so many other factors that come into play outside of that one. So once you start checking a dozen boxes, like again, if I have a high weight and high blood pressure and low insulin, like all of it, like, and all these things start to stack up leading into that. It's not just one actual marker. But on that note, like how do you kind of measure health outside of that realm? So what do you consider to be good like metrics for yourself?
Yeah. I think it's just how I feel. I have been going more on how I feel, which takes more time and reflecting. There's been times when I have weighed way less and look probably healthier than I do now, but I maybe wasn't eating great or taking good care of myself or like strong. Whereas I think when you just pose that scenario, like I felt that, like I feel like I'm heavier now, but I'm meeting my goals and I feel stronger. So like I'm okay with that right now.
Yeah, I get so confused by that one. It's like, okay, what if I put like, what if you looked no different and I had to put 20 pounds on your frame? You look no different, nothing changes, but you could flip a car. And they'd be like, no, I don't want the weight. And it's like, you wouldn't look any different. That's even the caveat in there. And they're like, they
Yeah.
would not accept it. Like,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the standards that we have set and kind of instilled into ourselves, it's like, that's what value is. And I find that so confusing. But then again, that's me trying to mansplain something silly. It's like, for guys, we don't care about weight. Like somebody could be overweight and they add value differently. But I think women, their perspective on that one, I don't understand it as much because again, I have never been a woman. But I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm sympathetic, empathetic towards like the viewpoints that could be a tough challenge to overcome. So when you were saying that, when you were lighter before, but even saying the things like you might have even looked better. What would you say in like the feelings of it? Because again, like not eating right. So like, what kind of impact does that kind of stuff have on you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to kind of counteract it to say, well, how can I help convince people? It's like, no, it's okay to put on the weight
Mm-hmm.
if it gets you everything else you've ever wanted.
Right. Um, well, I think age comes through. Like as you get older, it's like, oh, you start to feel stuff more. I would feel like my joints hurting or feel inflamed. Um, and so I think that even just the way you feel internally as you age, I think when you're younger, you don't stop and notice it or you don't feel it as
That's
much.
fair.
Um,
Also, our metabolism's like way up because we're like growing as people, and then we're not like growing as people anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Now we're just growing as people.
right. Um, what was the? I'm trying to think now. I think it was just more.
No, I just want to make sure that I wanted to get
Yeah.
enough insight to
Oh, like
your viewpoint of it,
besides
of like,
weight.
yeah, of understanding good solid metrics for
Yeah.
yourself that'll kind of go ahead and help. So
Well,
I know,
I just got a new metric this week,
yeah,
thanks to your help.
go on.
So I have been coming to Be the Collective, and I do the exercises, but I have never tried to like stop and see like how much can I deadlift. I've done deadlifts in the exercises, and but this week Charlie helped me, and we found that I can deadlift 170 pounds. So that was an exciting metric to start as a baseline. So I think as I become more comfortable with different weights and trying new things, I think then I'll have more numbers in that
Mm-hmm.
category that are like healthy numbers to help me achieve goals, not like looking at a weight or
Yeah, because I
a
think
size or anything like that.
because even like twice today, we were doing the sled work. I added the extra weight. Nothing changed. You went about it like I didn't do anything, and you just kept moving the sled, no problem. Or you self-recognizing that you started off really light in that incline press, and then I looked over. Suddenly, you have heavier weights in your hands, and then on the second lap, you had even heavier weights in your hands. So those things don't get lost on instructors. Like that's one of the things like I like to pride myself in is paying attention to, are people making that progress?
Yeah.
Because I've watched for so many years people walk into like a yoga sculpt class, they grab the 3 pound weight and they've like, I've been doing yoga for 10 years. And you look at it, it's like, it doesn't look like you've changed at all. It's like, you've been working with me for 3 years doing this stuff and you keep grabbing the same weight. Nothing's happening. Like you're just maintaining and you're like, I'm trying to tone up. It's like, that's not how this works.
Mm-hmm.
So by giving yourself more challenges, and I think it's really awesome to kind of recognize that you're seeing that in yourself of like, man, I do have the strength capability. I can do and achieve more when I push myself, and it's at your pace, right? I don't try to get anybody to go further or faster than they need to,
Mm-hmm.
but there needs to be some kind of challenge that
Yeah.
kind of comes out of it.
Yeah.
So we touched on it very briefly, but how has your definition of healthy like changed over time? So, and we talk about,
Yeah.
when we were younger and kind of how we look at life to how we're older now. So what would you think like the younger you would have looked at in terms of a couple of health metrics compared to now? And where do you think you see yourself in a couple of years as those metrics change?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we grew up in a generation that was very diet culture-y focused. Like, I felt like my whole life there was always something,
In
whether it's,
90s. The
yeah,
trans fats, the
everything.
sugar
Yeah.
loaded, fat free everything, snack
Yeah.
wells, like all
Yeah.
that garbage.
So I think just trying to relearn what, food as fuel and what
Yes.
fuels my body. If it's more protein, if it's more veggies, adding protein during the day has helped me a lot just for knowing what can hold me over during school. So I think we grew up in a very diet culture, so undoing a lot of that took time. I think now having kids, it makes me reevaluate like that positive self talk, or not. Maybe it's just not saying negative comments about your body in front of your children.
That's a big
I,
deal because the
yeah,
kids pick up on that stuff and they start to, because I have a weird theory on that one. Either you become exactly like your parents or the polar opposite.
mm-hmm.
So like hearing those things could either do one of two things. It'll make them do it or become the exact opposite of what you said.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you're saying those things to yourself, if you're behaving in those ways, it's easier for the kids to go ahead and pick up and say, this is normal. I've always been around this. This
Right.
is what normal is supposed to be.
Right.
And then we kind of put ourselves on a bad path and it's hard to get off of those things.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
People are showing up for the next session. We're just here super early for it.
I'm wondering if, oh my god, really early.
Yeah,
It
and
started at 8:30 or 8:45?
8:45.
Oh my god. That's crazy. Oh well.
That's all right.
Very
I
excited
was
about
racing
class.
over because I was working and then I thought, oh my god, I gotta go.
We have another Michelle
Yes.
here. We're in the middle of a podcast, so thank you. You're not hurting anything. If anything, it just makes it funny, like blooper reel stuff that we just leave in there because this is what reality is. Some people are so excited they get here 20 minutes early for stuff. And again, if you want to talk about health, you're more than welcome to join us. So as we get into like the next set of questions, so some of your favorite ones that you kind of go ahead and work through. So what do you think is the best exercise for health? The caveat is that there is no answer. Like there is not just exercise, but what one do you feel the most connected to? The one that kind of like, all right, you get to do one thing and you're like, I'm going to do this.
Like
What-
one exercise
Yeah.
or just one category of like.
You know what? I'll go with both. We'll go. I think you can do one and the other. Why not?
I think something with weights, or even if it's body weight. I think just I've been doing a lot of yoga lately, but I think to start, it like helped me with weights and build up strength, and then I felt more comfortable doing yoga, and I could push myself during yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say burpees, but that comes to mind only because I feel like it does.
It does a lot.
It does help so much. Squats are huge.
Yeah, squats are important because again, by the time we get to our 90s, hopefully we're still around. that I don't want to have to need help to get off the toilet.
Yeah. I
Like,
think
that's
the
one of the big
mobility
things.
stuff the instructors here integrate in a class has been super helpful too.
What was it? Emmy over the weekend, she was doing this adductor band work, and it was way tougher than I thought it was going to be, but it was like very like obtainable, and I felt like really connected into that movement. So like again, the mobility stuff is one of the things I'm always going to go for.
Yeah.
Weights or cardio?
Weights.
Weights.
I hate cardio.
What do you think is the best healthy food for you? What is like your favorite considered health food? And again, I put quotates around it because you know what, I can say Oreos because it stops me from strangling people. Like that could be a health food. But so what do you think is like your favorite like health food or healthy type thing to go ahead and eat?
Yeah, lately I think eggs. You can do a lot with eggs. Fried eggs on avocado toast has been sounding pretty great lately. There's some TikToks with like you use the chili oil and you fry the egg in it, or feta, and it. I don't know. Lately, I've been since I'm home. I think
eggs
working from home this summer, I've been making eggs in the morning, which has been nice.
Yeah.
So that
Eggs are
comes
awesome
to mind.
answer.
But salmon, we do a lot of salmon bowls and different types of salmon or fish too.
All right. What's the worst healthy food? The food that like they say is healthy and you're like, that shit's gross.
Some shakes out there.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes they can be rather lackluster and you're like, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
I found that with some protein powders too, where it's just like, how did you make this?
There's some sugar-free creamers. It's like that just doesn't even taste good.
Go black. it's honestly, it's the best. It's like find better grade coffee and just drink it black. Cause that's how I had to do it through like Intelligentsia. Cause before that it was like cream and sugar for days and I couldn't get the stuff down until it was like, oh, you have a cup of warm milk. And that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
And then I actually had really good coffee and I was like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, the sugar-free stuff kind of ends up in a little weird spot, but I do eat a lot of like sugar-free stuff. I try to make sure like my calorie count stays moderately low.
I just meant the coffee creamer.
Yeah, I get that. But sometimes those ones can get rather funky. What kind of food do you wish was healthier? Or something you're like, man, what if this was healthy?
Like some cheese fries or something, pizza.
Cheese fries. You got me thinking. Because again, with the other offshoot from We the Collective is Grandis Yoga Lift. That's my own company stuff. And on there, there's a bunch of recipes. So that's why I asked the question, so I can go ahead and try to come up with recipes. So now I'm going to start thinking about cheese fries. I think there's a pizza one on there. Again, I haven't noticed, like, you ever think about picking up a car? So kind of like joking about beforehand. It's like, if you were like strong enough to pick up a car, like, would you?
I'd try it with some other people.
I mean, like if you just physically had the ability,
just go around picking up cars.
Yeah, like just say you like walked into a parking spot and you're like, I want this spot, and you picked up a car and you can pick up a car.
Could mess with people that way, just moving their cars on them.
Yeah, I think they did it in one of those. Oh, it's Chronicle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the guy was able to like move a car with his mind or something like that. And also, so what's the goal? So what's the important thing that you're working on right now that is like priority? So to give a little bit more information on that, the word priorities, this pluralization of it, came hundreds of years afterwards. So when we had priority, they were only allowed to be one. So you're allowed to pick one thing, and I get people like default, it's like family, but we'll take one step outside of that one. What is your goal? What do you want to be able to do? And it really could be anything. It doesn't even have to be fitness related. You can just think your life in general. What is the goal? Because again, the activities that you do here are going to give you the energy to make sure that you can keep going and trying these other tough things. Yeah. So what's it all for?
I think to feel like my best self, be my best self. And that's physically, emotionally, financially.
But what's the best? But what's the best? I know I'm putting you on this really tough spot.
No, it's a good question. I don't think that stops. I think it just continues to grow.
Just becomes something else.
You just keep meeting the target. I think.
So what target are you trying to meet? See, we're going to get closer and closer. So what's the target you're gunning for?
I think right now it's completing this yoga training and continuing to put myself outside of my comfort zone there, and then.
And it's also the right reason too. Goal. It's also the right reason to put yourself out of your comfort zone to go learn something, because that's when we're going to probably experience the most learning and growth of self. Is again, if I'm sitting there really comfortable all the time, I'm not challenged, I'm not going to change at all. So that's what I was trying to get you to talk about. Any other questions back to like the We the Collective stuff, or just like any other things that are on your mind that you want to go ahead and discuss, and we can kind of talk about that for a few minutes as well.
I think I just appreciate nowadays that like a woman's healthy body isn't like expected to look a certain way. Like I think the yoga culture is a good example of that. I think now there's more women like doing strength training and lifting weights and like we talked about this a little bit, but doing the same exercises as men in the gym. And I think that's super cool in general.
Yeah, there's no reason. Like the only thing that might change is the weight, but I have watched women completely crush me in the lifts that I thought I was good at. So like the world record for women's, I think right now, there's this woman, her name's like Tamara Wilson. She has a 641-pound deadlift. And she did it without straps. She was in a strongman competition. Everyone else is like all strapped in. And she goes up there and she's got her like very, very like short blonde hair. So she has it like peroxide out. So it's like Cisco's. And she walks up and she does her little dance and she swings her arm over. And as soon as that arm comes like over the top, she's like, that's coming out. And she just all the way up. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm sitting there. It's like, I feel super strong and impressed with myself when I can get like close to 400. Mm-hmm. She's clearing 600 pounds in competition like it's nothing. So I'm like, there's absolutely no reason that women should not train like men or vice versa. So like, even when there's like scenarios where like, oh, men doing hip thrusts, there is nothing wrong with men doing hip thrusts.
Right.
It's just the science continues to come out and understand more. It's like, is that the most effective movement or is it still squats? So again, the science is going to go ahead and dictate it. But if it feels good to do the movement and you can do it heavy and safe, like keep going, right? The idea is to just get as far as you can until your body says, I genetically cannot go any further.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a different series of questions. But it takes a long time to get there. Yeah. So we're talking 10 years of hard, constant, progressive training to potentially max out our own genetics for just a person of any kind. It could take 10 years to get to your absolute peak. And also with a fun question, just because I think it's just silly. So the Barbie movie has come out recently. So
we're going to see it today. I'm taking my daughter today.
How old is she again?
10.
There is some question about it being like potentially not for the
I did hear that, and then one of my friends was like, I think some of the jokes that it'll go over the kids' head, but the adults will get it and like chuckle about it.
Okay, yeah, because I think there is some like line that's there. I've not seen the movie, but what I wanted to go ahead and see the movie for is one line. She asks a question. They're all dancing around. She goes, "Do you guys ever think about death?" And I'm like, okay, now I need to go see this because why? Barbie's asking such like a weird question. So on that one, do you ever think about that?
I try not to too much. Trying to be more present in the moment and just one day at a time. But it's hard to picture the future, if that makes sense. Like I can't picture my future self in 30 years when my kids are older. Not that I'll be dead, but I just can't picture it. So
it's just not there. You're focused on being present today. Yeah. And again, the main goal is to get through your yoga training. Mm-hmm. So even for right now, that might be the best healthy thing for you to do is like, this is where your focus is. This is where you want to go ahead and achieve something. And it doesn't have to be the end all be all of everything that you are. Mm-hmm. It's just a thing that you're working towards. So I can always definitely appreciate that one. Any other shout outs to anything else that you want to go ahead and promote, something that's, again, I'm just trying to make sure that you get an opportunity to say all the stuff that you want.
Yeah, thanks. If you don't already come to We the Collective, come on in and try out some classes. There's a huge variety of stuff, and I'm not being told to say this or I'm here to say it, but it has been life-changing. Everyone is awesome, and it's a great family community. So I highly recommend joining.
Just go ahead and cut on through. No, it's 100% fine. We're just wrapping up anyway. So it's Katie. We're just about to start the next round of classes. So
welcome back.
Yeah, she just got back from vacation. So excited for all this. And on that note, thanks so much for tuning in. And again, if there's other questions, other people that we can have on here. So we do want this to be a community place where we can share as much about our transformations and learnings as we can. And hopefully it's something that helps you. And on that note, good luck. Bye.
Bye.